So in my last video, I think there was probably one word that I used way more than your typical toolbox tour, and probably more than any other word in that video, and that was system. And I just kind of want to focus in on what I mean by that. How is a toolbox a system? How are there systems within this system? And systems within those systems? Why do I keep saying the word system over and over again and thinking that it's going to make more sense until I just start showing? Well, the way that I view organization, work, production, life is through systems. We all exist and operate within our own systems that exist within systems outside of ourselves, outside of those systems, and they all interact. It's no different in a toolbox. You've got a box, you've got the things on the outside of the box, you've got the drawers, you've got what's holding the things in the drawers, you've got the things in the drawers, and trying to figure out how you go about putting those together is really the crux of holistic system thinking. Now, I'm nowhere near done. This is a continuous, ever-evolving process, and something that's going to be the pursuit of a lifetime, just as it will be for most of you, I would hope. I don't think we all just buy a toolbox full of tools and work out of that for the rest of our lives for the next 30 years. I just don't think that's how this tends to go. So let's kind of break into that a little bit more. How do I have a system holistically, and how does that break down into systems, plural, within this system, and then subsystems within that? So we've got the box. Now, I've got all of these drawers, more or less, with a different general organizational principle, if not a theme. So my top right here is all my chromes. It's also got a few screwdrivers right now and a few extra breaker bars and ratchets I can't fit anywhere else. But there's still holes in there. There's still room for growth. There's somewhat. But I've got them on Ernst rails. Now, part of the reason for that is that my toolbox, my primary box, is a cart. It's made to be mobile. It's made to be taken to the work, not just be where you go back to grab your tools. This entire unit is designed to be brought with you as close as feasibly possible to the actual work. Now, you can get close, but you can get even closer. Or, what if that work isn't even in your shop? What if you've got to go pick up and go on a service call? What if you've got to go grab some tools, head over to your buddy's house and get him helped out? What do you do then? Well, for me, because that's been the way that I've operated for the majority of my career, not as a professional flat rate mechanic, but as somebody who works in remote environments, dealing with logistically complicated situations, trying to figure out how to get work done, primarily with federal land management and the operations that go along with base maintenance and just construction projects in the backcountry. I'm used to, if you don't have it with you, you don't have it at all. And so being able to cleanly bring something with you, bringing a system into chaos to be able to support you, is a really powerful thing. So that's how I have these broken down. I've gone with the Ernst rails because each one of these trays contains the rails. Now, they do a really good job of helping them stand up in your toolbox, but they also make it easy enough to just grab the whole tray. So if I want all of my 3/8 chrome sockets, that whole set in metric, I know pretty much automatically, I think I could do this blindfolded at this point, on the right side. They are on that tray, and that is every single one. That is an entire metric side of the Quinn 3/8 master socket set. I've got those sockets there. That's it. My SAE side had some empty spaces, so I filled them a little bit. Those last two are actually 1/2 inch. I forget if they're the 3/8. Not that I'm particularly clamoring for a 1/2 inch drive 3/8 very often, but they didn't quite fit on these rails, and that's a constraint. That might bother some people. It's just part of working within the system that is reality. It's taking what you've been given and making the most out of it. But you'll see on this one, I've got my accessories. I've got some extensions. I've got an oil filter socket on there, swivel. Those are my standards. Similarly, I've got the entire Quinn Master bit socket set, plus the Icon Deep. We'll get into this at some point. This is not the most useful thing in the world, and it'll probably get replaced at some point, but it's filling a gap for right now. Quarters, half, all of my chromes. These are all broken down and subdivided from the trays themselves. So I've got the one tray. That's all broken down by size and like drive size and type, SAE or metric or bit or whatever. I've got that layered. So everything is labeled. Everything is in its place. It's in order. And it's color coded. So I know that everything that I've got that is SAE is on green. Everything that I've got that is metric is on orange. Everything else that I've got that's either a blend or something specialty, something different, is on high vis. So now I can look at that, and I already have saved myself the mental energy of having to find 3 out of the 4 qualifiers for what tool I'm trying to grab. If I know I'm using a 1/4 inch drive and I want a 1/4 inch 10mm deep socket, I can go, okay, 1/4 inches in the middle, orange, 10, deep, there it is. It's right there, it's followable, it's consistent, and it saves you the mental energy of having to find something every time. That is a waste in your productivity. Now, right out of college, I had worked at a manufacturing plant, let's put it that way. And they had placed a fairly big emphasis on lean manufacturing and 5S. If you're not familiar with 5S, no, I can't tell you what it is in Japanese anymore. I do know that it's sort, set, and order, shine, standardize, and sustain. It's something that I kind of took to heart and really integrated deeply. It was not something I really thought of. For God's sakes, I was an athlete first and foremost in college, and then I was a history and political science major after that. But I'd worked campus maintenance and worked for church camps and other jobs and things like that. Worked with my grandfathers and my father. So this was all different, especially going into a manufacturing environment. But long story short, I had spent the entirety of my senior year trying to get to nationals. Didn't quite get there. I got pretty close. It is what it is. And so I didn't have a ton of plans, and I only had so many months until student loans and things like that kicked in. So I had to get my butt in gear and get to work and find some work and fast. And so that's how I wound up fresh out of college, right on the factory floor at a steel plant that had a roller mill and a press department making components for the electrical sector. It was about 60 hours a week in a dark box with loud noises and a lot of dangerous equipment, and that's just what I did for a year. I was saving money, I was figuring out what I was going to do, I was waiting for my now wife to graduate herself, and everything else from there. But while I was there, I started out as I actually got on through a temp hire, and I was on the factory floor from that point on, just as a regular worker, part of the union, nothing management, nothing like that. I don't even know if half the people in my department even knew that I went to college. It wasn't necessary, and it wasn't the big thing. Well, they had, long story short, again, done a round of hiring and things like that, so I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring, did an interview, and lo and behold, people were astounded that I could differentiate between my ass and the hole in the ground. And next thing I knew, I was talking with the plant manager, and he was basically trying to groom me for a middle management position. I was sitting there, 22 years old, staring down the barrel of $80,000 a year salary, pension, benefits, 3 weeks vacation. All the meanwhile, I had about 100 applications in all over the country with land management agencies, because that's kind of the direction I was thinking about going. I figured I had the rest of my life to work with a roof over my head, but I was just getting started, and I would never forgive myself if I didn't try it first. And well, they ended up going through the interview process. I'd gotten really close. I was actually getting ready to interview for one. I didn't quite make the first one, but that wasn't the one that they wanted me for anyway, so I was getting ready to go in for that second one. And I got an offer, and I took it. And really, I haven't looked back. I can't imagine my life now otherwise. One of the best decisions I ever made. But in that whole hiring process, I had to figure out at 22 years old as a humanities major that how big systems, manufacturing needed to be done. And one of the big buzzwords was 5S. The other was lean manufacturing. And so I studied and studied and studied and really found an appreciation for those concepts. And I guess I've found enough of an appreciation for it that I've kind of just integrated it into my mental model, and anymore, I actually have a really difficult time differentiating what aspects are and are not clearly 5S principles and clearly lean manufacturing principles. And a lot of that just comes to reducing waste. And that's why I get into all of this and being able to grab these systems, grab and go, because that's a waste. Every time you have to sit and think and hunt and peck and try and find something, you are wasting time. You are wasting energy. It gets into even these subsystems. If I didn't have them all organized at the broader and continually finer levels all the way down to labeling, and I'm trying to intuit and search and everything else, that's a waste. Similarly, I have things in familiar, repeatable positions. I just redid this box yesterday because I'd finally gotten some new ones. I need to kind of figure out what I want to do on the top here for this, because one of the things that bothers me is that this isn't completely mirroring all the way down, so I will probably be swapping over these socket sets and adjusting everything for that accordingly, but I'm getting off on a side tangent here. The reason I've got it this way, and I've got my impacts and my ratchets and everything, which I'm, again, planning on some overflow. There's some definite gaps and everything in here, but just kind of going through it is I still have each one of these systems. This is an odd one, but this just shows kind of how I have to buy in. I have to commit to the system once I've started it. So I've got my standard and metric. I've got these are oddballs. I have a set of 12 points. I don't use 12 point a ton. What I've used 12 point the most for in the small engine heavy equipment world is actually square fasteners. And so I've just got a 3/8 shallow 12 point set, and it's done me well enough. But I've got SAE and metric because they're smaller sets. So since I've got them together, I didn't want to organize half and half or split up into smaller rails because I can fit these 18-inch rails perfectly in a US General Series 3 deep drawer in this orientation. I went with this one as yellow because also to me, 12 points is a specialty socket. It's not something that I'm planning on seeing every day. Similarly, extractor set, same deal. I actually really hope to not need these most of the time, but mirrors going down into my wrenches. So, orange, a little bit of green there because the SAE set's so small on this one. Similarly with having the SAE and metric on the other side for quarter, we do the best we can with what reality gives us and the constraints that we have to operate within. Nothing is perfect, and that's okay. But getting down to the wrench set, the crow's feet, everything else, same thing. Left and right, metric standard. Descending, everything works into itself. I kind of touched on this last one. I've got plenty of extra space. I have plans for tools that I'm probably not going to buy for 20 years. I mean, I have an idea of what I'd like to do with a shop, what I'd like to do with toolboxes and tools. But we got to make these things grounded in reality and reasonable. So I've got this space. I've got plans. It is what it is. I'll get around to it. I'm not wrenching professionally at this exact moment. And I'm not a collector. I'm a user. I don't buy tools I don't really need. That's a damn lie. Anybody that buys tools has bought some tools they don't really need. We've all been there, but we just try to. The value is not in the acquisition of perfection. It is in the pursuit of perfection. So on and so forth as we go down. There's not really the same differentiation, but I still even have quite a bit of my other ones grouped similarly. As I go through, I have descending order of height. These are two of the Icon versions, and I guess these three are all just a little bit different. But as I go through my Nipex stuff, Nipex, I genuinely do not remember what the right way we're supposed to say this nowadays is. But I've got it going down through size. I've got it going down through type. I try and make things make as much sense as practically possible and go through there. Same with hammer types. Probably got entirely too many hammers for somebody at my position, but I like having a dead blow. Sometimes you just need a BFH. Sometimes you need it to be a ball peen. Sometimes, and I really like these hammers. I don't even remember what this one is. Some of these are. I like brass. I like having the soft face. Brass is real nice when you got to hit something a little bit harder, but you still don't necessarily want to completely foobar it. And just finding ways to get them to sit. I have plans for this tray. I have plans for this space. This is eventually going to be my getting something off of something drawer. Hammers. It's eventually going to include air hammers. I've got pullers. I've got different pry bars. I'll throw in some of my other tools as I grab extras from others because I don't want to pull them out of other systems, so on and so forth. But that's the principle. Having layers of logic and reason behind why we're doing what we're doing that can then be implemented at the appropriate level for the task at hand. So if I'm just working on something on my bench and I just need one socket, I can come in here, I can grab my one, I can get my work done. I can then put it right back exactly where it belongs because I can see exactly where the gap is and move on to the next thing. If I've got to go 2 counties over and double check the toe set on a Kubota ATV, because there was that for a while. It was actually, that wasn't the tow set itself, it was the torque spec on a control arm or something like that. I forget exactly what the service call bulletin was, but that kind of deal. Well, cool. I know exactly what that is. I can pull that socket, I can pull that torque wrench, I can have it set, I can go and do that. I know I can't fit that torque wrench in that fashion that way. Cool. I don't grab the socket, grab a crow's foot. You've got ways of solving problems. At the end of the day, that's what tools are, right? They are what help us solve our problems. And maybe I've gone on too long. Maybe I've waxed poetic a little too much in this one. Don't worry, there'll be more. I'm just getting started here. There's a lifetime of thinking that's gone into it to this point, and there's going to be a lifetime of thinking that goes into it for the rest of it. And hopefully, somewhere in these ramblings, you guys can glean some kind of a useful concept that can kind of inform your decisions as you go through. But this is just how I've been operating. This is how I've seen things, and this is what I'm doing. So if you like what you've seen, like, subscribe, do what you got to do. I'll see you on the next one either way.